We are very happy that we can introduce Robert Hogan, one of the most famous American psychologists of current days and expert on personal diagnostics. Robert, thank you very much for taking your time, and we are very happy that interview with you will be part of our annual conference Vzpomínky na budoucnost. We would like to speak about profile of the leaders and future of the leaders. You claim that leadership is a function of personality. Can you tell us what is the research and the know-how which is behind it?
The question is how people lead, the way they behave as leaders, I think is related to their personality. And I think that for two reasons. First, I think it because I just really believe it. It's been my experience. But second, there's just overwhelming data to support my claim. But first you have to define you have to define leadership correctly, and then second, you have to define personality correctly. When you define leadership correctly and personality correctly, then you can show very powerful statistical links between personality and leadership.
I know you have a lot of data about what are the main characteristics of good leaders, but can you for us to say shortly what are like the key factors when we are choosing the leaders?
There are four things that are absolutely essential in a leader. The first thing that's absolutely essential is honesty or integrity. They have to tell the truth, keep their word, don't play favorites, don't get involved in corporate politics, don't steal, don't lie. Be an honest person, and without that, they're ruined, they're dead, they're finished. So integrity is the number one most important thing. Measures of how well a staff trusts their boss is the best single predictor you have for how well the team's going to perform. So integrity is the most important single feature of leadership. Second, they need to make good decisions. You never have enough time, you never have enough data, but some people can make good decisions and some people can't make. If the leader makes bad decisions, it'll ruin so you have to make good decisions, and people can tell very quickly. Now, everyone makes mistakes, but a good leader will say, I made a mistake and we need to get that fixed. A bad leader will say, keep going, keep doing, we call it doubling down. I made a mistake, I'll just try hard. The third thing is essential in a leader is they need to know something about the business they're in. You can't bring in a person from the aeronautics industry and have them run a hospital. You can't take a hospital administrator and have them run an airline. They have to know something, they have to have a solid background in the actual business. And people can tell very quickly if you don't.
Is this also based on the research? Because we have many experience from the business that they have tried to do this matches and sometimes it worked.
Yeah. My favorite example is universities. People who fail as academics go into administration. And so you have people running universities who don't know anything about the business they're in. And that's why universities are so badly run. And then they need integrity. You have to be able to trust them. They need good judgment, do good decisions. You have to be able to rely on their decisions. Third, they need to know what they're talking about. They need to be competent in the business. And fourth, they need to have a vision. And the vision isn't something they just invent like a poet. Vision has to be grounded in reality, business opportunities, and the strength of the competition. And so the vision is, this is what we're going to do, this is why we're going to do it, this is why it matters, this is what will happen if we don't do it this way, boom, here's a vision for the future. And people need that, they absolutely need that. So they need to think you're honest, that you have good judgment, that you know what you're talking about, and that you have a proper vision for the future. Those are absolutely essential, and that's all there is, there's nothing else. And notice what I didn't mention there was social skill. I didn't say anything about social skill. And that's because that turns out not to be so relevant.
So do the leaders need any charisma to be charismatic leaders?
No, the data are perfectly clear. Two things. First, charisma is the same thing as narcissism. Narcissism and charisma, measures of narcissism, measure of charisma are as highly correlated as they can be. And second, the data are quite clear. Charismatic leaders ruin companies. They overinvest, they overproject, they won't pay attention to their mistakes, they won't listen to advice, they can't be coached, and they just... So in the long run, highly effective leaders are actually humble, and charismatic leaders are narcissists, and narcissists run companies.
Are there any differences between men and women in their personal profiles?
In terms of personality, if you're just looking at personality profiles, you can't tell women from men. They're pretty much the same. And women are as good at management as men. They're as good at leadership as men. I think the most effective politician in the world today is Angela Merkel. She's just really, really good. But I always say, and this is important to remember, there are just as many bad lady managers as there are bad male managers. About 65 to 75% of all female managers are just as bad as 65 to 75% of all male managers. The failure rate in female managers is just the same as male managers. But they fail for different reasons. Male managers mostly fail because they bully people. They get into bullying and intimidation. Female managers, this is empirical data. Female managers, the line is, they take away your basic humanity because they're smarter than men and they're meaner and they'll just take your heart out, whereas men just bully.
You mentioned that Angela Merkel is very smart. What is the correlation between IQ and successfulness of the leaders?
She's humble. I think she's very steady. She seems to keep her word. She never says anything until she's thought it through very carefully, so she knows what she's talking about. I think she makes great decisions. She's just smarter than those men, and they've always. And she's not charismatic. She's humble and understated, and I think she's just by and far the most effective leader in the world political stage.
What is the correlation between IQ and the leadership when you are mentioning smartness of Angela?
The way that works is if you're not smart, you can't do it. You're done. You're finished. But if you're smart, you may or may not be able to do it. And I define smart differently than academic psychologists do. Academics define smart in terms of scores on tests. I define smarts in terms of how well you can get things done. She was a PhD physical biologist. She did quantum biology. She's super, super smart in an academic sense. But where she's really smart is the way she's come up through the hierarchy where all these men were out to get her, and she was able to politically outmaneuvered hundreds of men. And she still does that. She's smart in a practical, functional sense of reading the cues and knowing how to move and not making many mistakes. She's very good.
You are describing the profile of the successful leaders in nowadays. Do you think it will change in the coming future?
There's a dimension of personality. Some people like the past and think things that are valuable are rooted in the past, and some people look forward to the future and think all the best things that the best is yet to come. I think the future is probably, I'm not optimistic about the future, and I don't think there will be progress in leadership. I think the fundamentals of leadership are rooted in the past and they'll always be valid. And I don't think there's anything people need to do to get ready for the future. Other than, I mean, there are people who talk about the future all the time, but I think they're poets. Who can tell the future? All you can, the future, your best guess is the future will resemble the past.
So do you think that the profile of the future successful leader will not be influenced by the coming generation Y and Z?
No, yes, I disagree with it. I don't think there's anything distinctive about the future generation except they're younger.
Yeah.
In some ways more entitled.
So you think that it's
easier life.
over-exaggerated, the differences which we state?
Yeah, I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the younger people, I mean, the older generation had to deal with World War II. That puts a real dent in your psyche. The younger generation hadn't had to deal with anything in the United States. So yes, I think the hard times that the older generations had to face were important in terms of forming their character, and the younger generation hasn't had to face significant hard times, and that's a problem for them. I mean, adversity makes you tough.
Yeah, but the researchers, for example, shows that generations that they don't want to work for huge companies, they want to have their own business.
Right.
So maybe they will need different leaders when they will just co-work.
Or maybe they'll just fail.
Yeah.
90% of all new businesses fail.
So that's why you are maybe not that optimistic about the future.
No, I'm not very optimistic at all. I think there are certain truths about human nature. There are certain verities. There are certain things that are the case and always will be the case. Good leadership is good leadership. Bad leadership takes a lot of different forms. Well-run organizations will always survive. You have to adapt. Part of it, I mean, you have to be adapting. But part of good leadership means being able to adapt. And people are people. People just exactly like us have been around for almost 1 million years. So there's no change.
Well, last question, which personal profiles tend to disappoint in the leadership positions? That they seem to be attractive from the first point of view.
Yeah. We make a distinction between the bright side of personality and the dark side of personality. The bright side is you when you're at your best. The dark side is when you just relax. A well-polished bright side can cover up for a bad dark side, and you see this in politicians all the time. I mean, it would be Bill Clinton, Dilma Rousseff. Often in politics, you only get what you see on TV, and Hillary Clinton looks good on TV, but if you met her in real life, you'd see the dark side, and that's the problem. The problem in choosing people and choosing leaders is to get past the bright side and into the dark side to see what you can actually see and see what you're going to really get.
And what can be the dark side?
Oh, narcissism is the big one in politics. Narcissism and delinquency, selfishness, ruthlessness, greed.
So what do you advise to HR managers to do?
I think the best thing HR managers can do is to religiously use competent psychological assessment, psychometric assessment, before they hire or promote anybody. The most important lesson for HR is to stop using interviews and just use objective tests. The data, people have been studying the subject for almost 100 years. The data are perfectly clear. Interviews are just projections of the interviewer's personality. Interviews lack inherent validity for selecting people. You have to use assessment data. If you just rely on assessment data, you'll make better decisions. To the degree you rely on interviews, you'll end up playing politics.
But there is also something about it that people want to choose the right person to their team because they want to like the person, and if it's just on the objective data, they might not like the personality.
So the right way to proceed is to identify 5 people using the assessments, all 5 of whom are equally qualified based on the assessments. Then let the person do an interview, because they can't make a mistake at that point.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You are the future of business in the Czech Republic. You're the most important person. Okay, what do we do now?
We go downstairs, and there's an interview.
Oh, there's an interview?
Yeah.
Oh, how? Okay, let's go have an interview. Here we go. Thank you. Good job.
Yeah.